And welcome back to Open Line. Chuck Long here with Kevin Kennedy, attorney Kevin Kennedy. A lot of you have been calling in this evening. It's always such a great hour when we have Kevin here, because if you're like me and you're out there watching and you think, you know, I've got a lot of legal questions. There's a lot of areas that I'd really like some good advice. You've been doing this for a long time. Very successfully.
Well, thank you.
You have 3 practices. Nonstop.
Lots of lawyers. And they say, well, Kevin, why do you have? Well, one thing, you need a lot of minds. And even my support staff is brilliant. You know, okay, you're right, Kevin, you got more experience than that. You've been in the courtroom, and they'll come in there and they learn now. Mr. Kennedy, have you thought of this? Hell, where did you think of that? And we have created an environment of proactive thinking. So if I was in trouble, I'm going down there, and I don't want just one. I want to get that group together.
Absolutely.
And there's you know, one of the great generals 2,500 years ago said, never attack a fortified city. And so I love old proverbs. They're good. They're great.
They've lasted for a reason.
Benjamin Franklin, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's why we're helping you tonight.
Absolutely. A lot of folks calling in. We do appreciate your patience and we appreciate your calls. Going right back to the lines right now. Woodrow is on the line with us. Woodrow, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for attorney Kevin Kennedy?
A question.
Okay, go ahead.
My license was suspended for an old criminal case back in 2001.
All right.
And they saying I owe $27,000
Woo!
for that criminal case. And the debt has been sold off to a private law firm. So what is my relief now?
What my relief would be, I'd hire a lawyer, and the question is, are those fines still on the books at the courthouse? If they still are, I would try to hire a lawyer, file a petition, say we are not able to do this, these are old, make an argument that it's prejudicial, and it's a miscarriage of justice to make you pay that over a driver's license issue, and try to see if the judge would waive that. Remember, all you really need is a court order. If a judge could sign a court order, you could be forgiven that. And of course, a lawyer can negotiate many times and pay some and get it released.
All right, well, Woodrow, we appreciate the call. You know, the other thing, too, when something comes up, people are often afraid to ask, and that's the beauty of this show.
It is so true.
If it's on your mind, you've got a legal question or a comment, make sure that you get on the line with us. We're going right back to the lines. Annette is on the line with us. Annette, good evening, and do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
I have a question.
All right.
My dad was in a nursing home back last year.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know how long he had an infected toe.
Okay.
And they did nothing for him. And when he got home, I took him to the doctor, and he had to have his toe cut off, and then he had to have his leg cut off.
Okay.
And how long do you have before you can file?
That's a good question. In Tennessee, it's 1 year statute of limitations. That is a real big issue everywhere. It's nursing home neglect and abuse. And if you have a loved one and they are not giving them care within the standard of community, if there's a deviation, then that would bring on civil liability for that nursing home. And why do we do that? It is against public policy for anyone to be abused, children, elderly. So we understand the theory. Now, Kevin, are there specific statutes? Yes. And that's why you need the help of a lawyer and let him discuss it. And he might do a little research and say, here we go, we got him.
All right. Great advice, Annette. Thank you so much for calling in. And, you know, on that level, on that note, you know, in the last year, we have seen a lot more about assault, harassment, and that sort of thing. Are you seeing this
If
trend?
you go to the courts anywhere in Tennessee, they're full. So people are more educated now. They're more sensitive. And, you know, just like you said earlier, so many people are scared to ask a question. They're intimidated from a district attorney, or they're scared to even ask, and they have their rights, and they just let them go. So this hopefully will inspire some. And for those who are strong, I've used this over the years. Strong people stand up for themselves, and stronger stand up for others. So Chuck, you've been trained, you've had the opportunity. If you saw injustice, if you and I saw injustice, I have to speak up.
Absolutely.
I can't let it go by. And so that's what I want to tell these families, because somebody understands it better, and try to explain it, help protect those who can't protect themselves.
All right, again, great advice. A lot of folks calling in right now. We do appreciate your patience, but hang on the lines with. We will get to as many questions as we possibly can, comments. We're going back to the lines right now. Jerome is on the line. Jerome, thanks for your patience, and do you have a question or a comment for Kevin? Are you with us, Jerome?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I got a question.
Okay, ask away.
I went in. I went in the store and I used the ATM machine, and they got it marked up on top of the ATM machine. They cost $20 for every transaction you make. So I want to know, is that legal or not?
You know what? That is a good question. I have not seen that out there. Generally speaking, banks can charge a reasonable fee. What is reasonable, Chuck? Is it reasonable to have $20, $5? Then that becomes a subjective question. And so I'm not really sure about that. I'd like to see the sign. I'd like to hear what's going on, and then probably do a little research and tell you. But again, one judge could say, I think that's reasonable.
Right.
And there could be limits on the amount of money that you got. If it's a small transaction, then that wouldn't be feasible. But if it were substantial, and it's something to consider. So much of the law is what would a reasonable person do under those circumstances, and there's laws that they would say this is unconscionable. Let me just give you one example so you can understand kind of what we're confronted with, then we'll take some more questions. If they said, okay, if you don't pay this, I'm going to take your child. That's unconscionable. No one is going to enforce that law, even if you had a contract. So thank you for that question. It probably helped a lot and gave me some food for thought. I'm going to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate it, Jerome. We are going back to the lines right now. Cheryl is on the line with us. Cheryl, thanks for calling in. And do you have a question or a comment this evening? Are you with us, Cheryl?
Yes, I just wonder if Kennedy Law Firm practices in Kentucky.
Yes, ma'am, we do. And thank you for asking. And thank you so much.
All right, we appreciate that, Cheryl. All right, right back.
Every line is lit up, Chuck.
They are. We got to go fast through these lines. All right, Brian is on the line with us. Brian,
hello.
Thank you for calling in. Do you have a question?
Yeah, this is Brian. I know Dan Kennedy and David Kennedy and their friends, Mark Scruggs. So what I'm calling about is, you know, my father, he owns a lot of land out here in Tennessee. And I was wondering, if he probates the will, if he writes it down on a yellow legal pad, is that legal?
Well, let me say this. That's what's known as a holographic will in the state of Tennessee. They say that if he writes it in his own handwriting and it signs it, but this lawyer, I don't want people attacking. So if he's got substantial assets, please take the extra step. Go to a lawyer. I'm telling everybody, get a will. Get a will, because you don't want your family agonizing, and you sure don't want to see your children fight one another, or if there's grandchildren. So if you will listen to this lawyer, you will take the extra step. And you know, when I was a young lawyer, I was the guy that was a lawyer, didn't have a will, but and I fell off a horse, hurt my back. I said, golly, what would have happened if I had a child? So listen to me carefully. I want to encourage you, get a will.
All right, so first step to getting a will would be
contact the lawyer.
There you go.
And then just simply sit. They're not all that expensive, especially if you have a simple will, but you ought to consider a power of attorney. You ought to consider a medical power of attorney, a durable power of attorney. There's several right there, but the general public could use those, and it will save your family a lot of grief. And sometimes all Kevin Kennedy needs is just one little piece of paper, and he can take on an army. They can bring all the board, and they said, we demand this, and I say, hold on, fellas. This is our position, and we will not retreat. Many times, that's all I needed.
All right, sounds great. All right, thanks so much, Brian. Back to the line. So Gail is on the line with us. Gail, thank you for calling in and watching this evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
I have a question.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Kennedy.
Hi, thank you for calling.
My next door neighbor last summer had his house torn down, and he has built a new house. Last November, when the painters were painting the outside, it's brick, but he had it painted white.
Okay.
The paint splattered. Our driveways connect. I mean,
yes.
they're side by side, and this paint splattered speckles all over my car. And my car was 3 years old last September, but this happened in November. He gave me a $20 coupon to get my car washed at the car wash, but it did not take any of it off. And the guys there said it would be $60 an hour to have it taken off, and it'd probably be 5 or 6 hours. And I told him that, but nothing has been done about it since.
What's happened to you has happened to lots of people, and this is I want to address yours and then talk to the public in general. You know, you can park your car, all these big buildings, they power wash and they clean brick and they use acid, and there's a fine mist that comes over, and if it settles on your car, then those people take on liability. They have insurance policies and you can make a claim. So what should we do? If that happens, go out and find out who's in charge. Then we're also playing a game. One game is the guy said, well, I hired this subcontractor. And another guy said, well, I hired this subcontractor. So you got 3 people potentially liable. The squeaky door gets the oil. Proactive approach. What you should do, man, is get your estimate from a reputable body shop on what it would do. Just because they buff it off, it damages your car. And someone could easily say the only way to correct this efficiently is a new paint job, which is $6,000, $7,000, and make a pursuit after it.
All right. Once again, great advice, Gail. Thank you so much for calling in.
Yes.
We've got a lot of you on the lines with us right now. We do need to take a break, but get on the line if you have a legal question that you want to ask expert Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm about. We'll take a break and then continue on with Open Line.